Hey, YouTube, welcome back to my channel. This is Nathan Daley. I'm your law enforcement translator, here to provide you insight on some difficult topics from the mindset and the experience of a 13-year law enforcement veteran. You guys, a good friend of mine sent me an email yesterday about a case that's actively going on. It's involving a shooting of a black man, and so he wanted my take on it. And I told him I would break it down and take a look at it and see what's going on in this case. This case occurred in Miami, Florida. This happened, I believe, March 8th. And, it's very interesting, you guys, very interesting case. I'm going to tell you why. There's a couple things, of course, that I have an issue with, but I will break down what I was able to piece together as we wait for more evidence to come out. So what we are missing right now is the body cam footage, of course, right? And there's footage of the incident from a building across from where the altercation took place. So let me tell you what happened. This is involving a gentleman by the name of Antwon Cooper. All right. So on this day, March 8th, Antwon Cooper was driving a vehicle. It was a red vehicle along with a passenger. He got stopped. He got pulled over, possibly in reference to an expired registration on the vehicle, which, you guys, that makes a legitimate traffic stop. All right. So he was pulled over. The police went up to the window, asked him some questions, asked for his license. He was unable to provide a driver's license or, I believe, an ID. It's still kind of up in the air about the two, whether or not it was maybe just an ID but not a valid license, meaning that his license could have been suspended, or he actually did not have ID at all. So that in particular, that particular detail is still in question. So I did watch and I read several different news clips in reference to the incident, trying to pull as much evidence as possible so I can give you guys a decent breakdown based on what we have. What we do know is we're missing the actual physical video evidence. Miami is refusing to release the video. The police department's not releasing the video. They did, in fact, show the family, and the family was not okay with what they saw. Now, this is what I will say, you guys. My idea with the body cam. So before we dive into the news article and the video, I want to give you my opinion on body cams. At this stage in the game, I believe every single police department should have one. I believe if you're a police department and you don't have a body camera, it looks very suspicious at this point. Some say you can't afford it. Then lean on the federal government to provide the resources so you can have it. Or I say reach out to Black Lives Matter and other organizations like it, maybe the NAACP, and let them fund those body cameras for these smaller agencies, right? Because transparency is absolutely paramount at this point, because people have lost trust for law enforcement. People have lost trust, especially in the black community. There's a lack of trust because of the lack of transparency, and we see it right now. I believe when it comes to tragic incidents involving law enforcement, I believe the family should be able to decide whether or not the video is released to the public, right? If they don't want it released, I believe then the department should have discretion on what parts of the video they want released to the public, simply because sometimes, depending on the circumstances, showing the video might release certain evidence and things of that nature. And sometimes I do agree, because I know some cases are more sensitive than others. But for the most part, you guys, what the officer sees, the public should be able to see. That's in a nutshell how I look at it. And if there's issue with people's faces, then you blur them out, right? I'm talking victims, or maybe gruesome scenes and things of that nature, things that need to remain private. But for the most part, there really isn't. I would say 95% of all video images that's captured by law enforcement should belong to the public. That's my personal take on it. I know some people will disagree. So let's get into this. Antwon, he was 34 years of age. You guys, he did have an extensive criminal history, but that was not known by law enforcement. So that doesn't play a role or a factor in some situations. But I'm going to tell you why it is important, you guys, because a person's past and a person's active doings, or the things that they are into present day, has an impact on their reaction and their response to law enforcement. Some people don't think so. I'm telling you, it absolutely has an influence on it, right? Because it speaks to a person's mentality. Okay, so meaning if you are an active criminal, or you're someone who's actively doing things, or you've done a lot in the past, you have bad experience with law enforcement because of the history of crime and whatever, or just overall, maybe you had an experience where an officer abused power. You know, that does play a role in a person's mentality when they are actually engaging with law enforcement sometimes, right? And so you can't necessarily ignore it because it does speak to a particular behavior and a reaction. Now, what was his criminal history? 2006 in Miami-Dade County, he was found guilty of armed burglary, conspiracy to commit home invasion, robbery, and a threat to use a firearm. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison, right? According to the Florida Department of Corrections, he was released March 1st, 2011. 9 months after his release, he was arrested for cocaine possession with the intent to distribute. After that, possession of marijuana, 2012, armed robbery, 2014, possession of controlled substance in 2019. The problem with this case is after he was pulled over, they asked him to get out of the vehicle, and I believe the officer was in the process of patting him down. And he had a weapon on him. They didn't say where it was located, but it was on his person, possibly maybe in a pocket, possibly on his waistband. We don't really know. They got into a tussle. He got into I would say maybe a passive aggressive, according to the news article and the video. The attorney makes the statement about it. He gets into a confrontation with the officer where he is trying to fight his way out of the grasp of the officer. He didn't strike the officer. He never drew the weapon, though he had the weapon. And he was just trying to get away, per the attorney and the family that actually watched the body cam. He was resisting arrest. Ultimately, he was resisting arrest. It was what we call passive resistance, if that's what it was, according to the attorney, meaning that he was not physically trying to assault the officer. He was simply trying to get away. What happened was a second officer who arrived on scene observed the firearm in some capacity, right? The family said that in the video, he never reached for the gun. He never pointed the gun. He never brandished the gun at the officers. The second officer, while the first officer was trying to detain him, the second officer actually shot him in the head at point blank range, you guys. And I'm gonna tell you, if that's the case, which I don't think the family would have a reason to lie after they saw the video. Now, I know there's a little bit of nuance, but honestly, guys, that is absolutely not justified. It's absolutely would not be justified. Even though he is a convicted felon, he's not supposed to have a firearm. Being in possession of a firearm does not give an officer right to actually shoot you. It just is what it is. That's the law. The family was very, very hurt. They're very disappointed, and they have every right to be. I don't think that the family is lying. I really just don't think they're lying about this case. They said it was plain as day. And the reason why I say I don't think they're lying is because the reaction the father gave, right? The reaction the father gave. So I want to play it real quick, and I want us to kind of go through it. Let me see. That way we can all look at this together. And I'll pause it if I need to pause it, but let's go ahead and.
What a father. He is heartbroken, as you could hear there. Police shot and killed his son. And tonight he is suing and he's asking for justice.
NBC6 investigator Willard Kepper spoke to
the family and joined us now live from Miami with the story you'll see only right here on 6.
Well, Trina, you see what's behind me. This is the memorial set up here in Northwest Miami-Dade County for Antwon Cooper. He was killed here at this scene, the location where I am right now. Our team member, Lissa Hyman, was here on the night that this happened. And since that moment, a lot has transpired. Police say that this man had a weapon on him. They say they found a weapon here at the scene. They say there was a struggle out here. But the family and the lawyers dispute what the police department is saying. One of the reasons why that camera right over there on Northwestern High School, and also body-worn camera that the family and attorneys have seen, they say their loved one should never have been shot.
Never think that I'd be sitting in doing something like this for a little one of mine.
They took my stuff from
Antwon Cooper's family tried to put into words their pain.
I don't know what to say, because my heart is so broken right now. Because I don't know what to say, but I just know that he didn't need to be shot like that. He didn't need to be shot like that. I don't care. I don't care if he had a record from here to North Pole. They didn't have no business killing my grandson like that.
My son was killed. You know, he was shot in the head. He didn't deserve that.
Cooper's family described raising him and
You know, that was the father. He said he didn't deserve that. I thought that was a very interesting way to put it. And the grandmother's like, you know, I don't care how long his history is or what you think this or whatever. He didn't deserve to be shot like that. What that to me says a lot, you guys. It says a lot on how they described it, just how they expressed it. I have a feeling it looked more like an execution. Just from the way the father expressed himself, it looked more like an execution. You know, where it was such an extreme act, right? As if the officers, and mind you, I have not seen the body camera footage, but I just have a feeling, I have a very strong feeling that the way it was done was in such a way that where it looked like it was an execution. And the level and the type or the action the officer did was beyond excessive, and it lacked compassion, and it was extremely immoral, right? Sinister, probably. I just, that's just the feeling that I get. And I'm not saying that just to be saying that, but that's the feeling that I get. And I don't know, right? Until we see the body camera footage, you know, we really don't know. The police chief made a statement, said that the officer saw the gun. He never said that Antwon grabbed it, brandished it, or any of that, right? It was none of that. You can't shoot a person because they have the potential to harm you. It doesn't work like that. They have to manifest the threat, right? And that's per the Supreme Court. That's law, right? That applies for anybody, all citizens, not just police. You cannot use deadly force against someone unless a threat of imminent death or danger, fear of great bodily harm upon yourself or another person. So no, you know, the fact that he didn't have the gun in his hand, according to the family, according to the family's attorney, never even had the gun in his hand. No, it's not gonna work. You know, it's very, very tragic. You know, I'm gonna keep playing. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because I want to get to the statements that are made by the attorney.
After a time record that ended a decade, he was working in the right direction. Struggle, and the police say there was a moving in the right direction. Miami police say there was a struggle, and the officer was forced to fire. The family and their attorneys strongly disagree.
And I want the police who were responsible for it, I want him arrested.
But because with our own eyes, we've seen the footage.
Attorney Rossi Williams told us anytime before Cooper was in touch with the law didn't matter. She says the officer who stopped Cooper didn't even know who he was because Cooper didn't have his driver's license. She says the second officer arrived and quickly shot Cooper.
This officer, he shot Mr. Antwon Cooper in the head. If the footage is really shown, that is what people will see. They'll see that he shot him in the head at close range. They'll see that he was so reckless in his shooting that he shot him in the head at close range with another officer right there.
He never punched him. He never swung at him. He never kicked him. He wasn't brandishing any weapons. He wasn't pointing any weapons at anybody. In fact, the only thing that Mr. Cooper was actually trying to do was trying to free himself from Officer grip.
See, and that's what he's saying is, again, what he was doing, Antwon was what? He was resisting arrest. You know, he was resisting arrest. resisting arrest should never end up in anyone losing their life, you guys. Should never. You know, I'm gonna touch on that though. You know, honestly, at this point, I would love to, when situations like this happen, because the family tends to get access to the body cam, I would love to consult with the family and be able to break it down for them, because the police aren't going to do that for them, right? And really point out the areas and give them an honest review of what is actually taking place. And at least they know they have a third party person who can really give them some real transparency, especially on how to go about addressing the issue through the police department, the chain of command, who to speak to, and things of that nature. The only reason why I would assume that they're not releasing that video footage because it's graphic, and it would more than likely show that the department or the officer it's incriminating, right? It's going to make the officer look bad. There's no justification for that level of force. Now, you know, what did that officer see? We need to know, right? Did the chief say anything? I didn't see anything online. I tried to look it up and see what I could find. There's not much information out about it. And, you know, this is what people don't like. They want transparency. Transparency means tell us what happened. You know, don't try to hide out, let this thing die down from the public, try to doctor things up on the side. People need to know immediately, I think. It's just better that way, especially in the current state this country's in regards to police relations.
I mean, they are the police. They are the police, and they're trained. So I feel like, you know, things could have been handled a lot more professionally.
All right, and that's the reason why I know that that this is something bigger, because what the father said, he's looking at everything, he's seeing everything now. He's saying that I know these officers are trained, and there was no excuse for the level or the way they handled that. They could have done better, right? What is he saying? He's in that statement, I'm hearing from the father, he's still, his reasoning is still that of holding his son accountable, saying that he never said it, but when you listen to what he said, he's like, listen, I know the officers are trained, but what they did was unacceptable. There were other things they could have done to deal with that situation, to maybe not de-escalate, but shooting him in the head was definitely not the answer, right? But what he saw, he knows that his son was not in the right, you know, and I can just tell from the way he expressed himself. He knows his son wasn't in the right, but he also knows that the way the officers handled that was absolutely incorrect. And that's what made me really kind of dive into a little deeper. So this is very interesting. I'm going to try to reach out to the family, or if someone else gets an opportunity to, I would love to consult with them. And just the idea of kind of looking at both video footage, breaking it down for them, and also identifying if there are some issues there. I wonder if they have access to the police report. I wonder what the officer's statement is. But let's continue.
Deers or rabbits or something like that. That was a human being just like your family. Your family is a human being too. And he took my grandson from me and took him from his mama to it. I just thought.
Damn.
After Police Chief Manny Morales met with the family, he sent us a statement saying, "We offered our condolences and we will continue to fully cooperate with the FDLE, and offered any support needed by the family during this difficult time." FDLE is telling us they'll continue forward with that investigation. Of course, we'd like to play that video for you here on NBC6, but under the Florida law, it is exempt while this investigation is moving forward. They still have to talk to witnesses, gather a lot of evidence, and these officers do get their due process while these investigations.
This is interesting. I'm gonna be honest. There's absolutely no excuse for a department not releasing. Well, I will say this: they released it to the family. There are some cases where they don't even show the family. I think, if anything, they release it to the family. They need to see it, but I do believe that they should have the right to share that with the public. You know, when they feel comfortable, feel ready. I believe we don't know, so I'm not going to make any assumptions. We don't know what the officer saw, but again, according to the attorney, he's like, he didn't do anything. He wasn't fighting back. He was resisting, but that officer used excessive force all day. So I don't see them. It just, to me, it just doesn't seem like a lie. I wonder what the nationality of the officer is. They didn't mention he was white. I feel like if the officer was white, they would have said that. The officer might have been black, right? I mean, might have been a different ethnicity, but I found that weird. Normally, that's something people are really quick to do, is to throw the race or the type of race of the officer out like that. Haven't heard anything from any activists yet. Find that interesting. This happened March 8th. Unfortunately, guys, and just to be honest, not even to play games or to be comical in this video, there's a pattern of a lot of the activists not really getting behind police shootings if the shooter is not white, right? You have organizations that aren't going to get behind this case if the shooter is not white. If the officer's not white, they don't really pick up on it. You guys, I've seen this firsthand in my personal experience involving shootings, where when they realized that the officer was black, they called off the press. They called off everything. They're going to fly in from out of town, give a big press conference. And this is a big name. I'll let you guess who you think it was. And when he found out, his team found out that the officer was black and the suspect was black who got shot, he decided to cancel everything, you guys. And so it's just sick, man. It's sick that people they play race like that. They use the skin color of people to determine which cause they're going to fight for. Wrong is wrong and right is right. And if the officers are wrong, the officer needs to be punished with the full extent of the law, and so it's just very disappointing. Again, I didn't even hear about this case. Again, a good friend of mine sent this to me and wanted me to take a look at it and get my opinion. And so I definitely, when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is weird. And there's a couple cases like that. There's the one with the boy wrapped up in the mat at school, and then nobody knows anything. There's security footage erased. One of the lead suspects in the crime is white. His father is an FBI agent. So, I mean, you have all these things, and it's like, people aren't stupid, and, this is one of the reasons why I started my channel, to talk against these things and bring up some reform ideas. I'm putting stuff together because I want to present them. And anytime I can have the conversation with people who are willing to listen, I give them an earful. So this is very sad. It's tragic. Regardless of what a person's criminal history is, that gives nobody the right. And it doesn't make that person any less worthy to be alive, right? So I don't like that. I don't like when people kind of bring that up. It's so ignorant when I hear people say, oh, but look at his history. Look at that. Like, that's irrelevant. The only thing a person's criminal history plays in is their mentality and how they interact with law enforcement. Sometimes it speaks to their state of mind, meaning that if this person is an active criminal and they have a lot going on, their fear of being arrested could be because of something they may have done, prior to being stopped by the police. So what we do know, this was a legitimate stop. We do know that he didn't have any ID or any license. They ordered him out the car. And it seems like before or as the officer was patting him down, I saw another article where it said that the officer had him by the dreads and he was trying to, kind of getting away. And then something else stated that the second officer, the sergeant, actually saw the gun, I guess, on his person in some way or some fashion. He saw the weapon. All it says is he saw the weapon, and then he immediately shot at close range. So we don't know if he was reaching for it, if he grabbed it. I mean, again, that's going to have to be for the body cam, right? So it sounds really bad, but from what they see, what they said, so I don't know. I'm going to have to keep an eye on this, though. Let me know what you guys think. I already know what you guys are probably going to think, but hopefully we get some clarity. Very tragic. Keep the family in your prayers. It's very unfortunate, you guys. And so hopefully we get some more information so we can kind of really break it down even further. So other than that, you guys, that's it. Let me know your thoughts. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, you guys. With that, good night and God bless.